Hello, Public Access presents All About Books with Paul Kinkade.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Either by accident or design, somehow you found your way this evening to All About Books, where we read them so you don't have to. Tonight's guest is musically inclined, Mr. Buddy Cabernet. Welcome, Buddy.
Great to be here.
Well, it's great to have you here. You know, viewer, most of you probably don't know, but Buddy comes from a long line of very talented trumpeters or trumpet players, shall we say?
Usually I say X-Men.
Axeman, okay. Is that like with Magneto and okay.
No.
Anyway, he's been playing for many, many years. That's correct?
Yes.
And we're celebrating tonight the introduction of his new book, Mother Pucker, which I understand is been put out by Pucker Press,
That's right.
self-published. And how many copies have you sold up to now?
About 50.
About 50. Okay. How many relatives do you have that buy the books?
About 52.
Okay. So you've got at least two more to go.
That's right.
Okay. A little bit about your background. I understand that, first of all, you were having trouble getting gigs in and about the United States until February 7th, 1970, when Al Hurt, a pretty famous trumpet player,
Jumbo.
was in a parade riding a float during the Mardi Gras when someone out in the crowd threw a brick, hit poor Al on the lip, and he required about 8 or 9 stitches.
I'm sorry, I didn't see that at all.
Well, of course not. But I think it's fair to point out, because he wasn't able to continue with the gig he was already signed up for, that was your entry into the business. True?
Yeah, that's true.
Okay. I'm glad you at least admit that. And so that caught the attention of the record label that you were with for an astounding 37 years. I'm, of course, speaking about One Note Records.
That's correct.
Okay, and you were with them for about 2.5 years before you brought out your first album. I believe it was called Buddy Blows Big Time.
That's right.
And how many different numbers did you play on that?
All of them.
All of them?
Right.
Okay.
I was the featured performer on the album.
I see.
We had about 12 songs.
12 songs?
Yeah.
And were they of a particular variety, or?
Well, they were very much like Al's Java. You know, they had a nice little melody. Got to show off my playing. You know, it was time for me to be a front man, not you know, I'd toured with the big bands for a while there, and well, you know, that's how I ended up with the name Buddy Cabernet. You know, just.
And how did that happen?
Well, I just figured that, you know, when I was christened Conti Cannoli, and Conti was a famous trumpeter out here on the West Coast.
Okay, I did not know that.
But the thought came to me that people wouldn't look for a front man that was a pastry. So
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
So I changed over to Buddy Cabernet.
Buddy Cabernet, and I guess it worked out for you.
It did.
So to speak. So you were with One Note Records, and then about 7.5 years later, you brought out your second album, Vintage Cabernet, correct?
That's true.
Now, what's unusual about this second album of yours is that it was supposed to be your greatest hits. It was only your second album, and it was virtually identical to your first album, with the exception of 2 bonus cuts.
Well, they weren't bonus. We planned on having them there all the time.
Oh, did you?
Yes.
Did you? So there were going to be 14 cuts on this instead of 12.
That's right.
And were they different than in stylistically?
Well, I grew as a musician over the years, and I had been performing those other songs. So in a way, they were already hits when I was on the road. So I just had to include them.
And you felt an obligation to your audience. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, hold that thought, and we'll be right back in just a moment. We're going away now for a word from our sponsor.
You've been watching All About Books with Paul Kinkade. Tonight's episode is sponsored by Murray's Mints, the mint that solves every social issue. Now here's Murray.
Yeah, all right, I'm ready. Hey, Pepe, I hear you're having problems with females of the opposite sex. Do what Murray would do if he had problems with females of the opposite sex. Put a mint in it. You want to zoom in on my product here? Put a mint in it. Murray's Mints. And remember, what? I'm Murray. How was that? Thought it was good. Thought it went well. How did you... Hey, am I in focus?
And now, back to the show with Paul Kinkade and his guest.
Well, we're back with Buddy Cabernet. Thank you for joining us this evening. And his book, I'll remind you again. Juan, let's get a nice shot of that one. It's Mother Pucker. And where does the term pucker come from?
Well, you can't play a trumpet without puckering.
You can't.
No.
That's true of a lot of things, not just playing the trumpet. But excuse me?
That's okay.
Yeah, that's okay. Do you want a bib?
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Okay. So tell me, what was that little sound you were making?
Well, the trumpet's an interesting instrument in that the lips are what make the sound. It's not like you have a reed like some of the other wind instruments.
So are the lips like the reed?
The lips are the reed.
They are the reed.
Yeah. So you have to keep in really good shape.
Wait a minute. So if you say read my lips, I mean, it's really what's happening?
No.
No. Okay. You with One Note Records now? It's been like going and moving into the 80s, and the sales weren't too good.
That's true.
They'd tapered off pretty much.
Yeah.
And so I understand that with the advent of disco, you decided to cash in on it.
That's true. That turned out to be a good idea.
Good idea. However, the decision to title the album was left up to One Note Records, and I understand they called it Barely Staying Alive.
I had some issues with this.
Yeah, I bet. And then shortly after, sad to say, One Note Records cut you loose.
No, that's true.
That's true. So what have you been doing since then?
Well, I was pretty despondent for a while.
Okay, for 15, 20 years?
Most of that time.
Okay.
I actually did some touring. I went to kind of find myself in India for a while. And learned a little bit about myself.
And okay.
But it was really good for me to get away and to be able to get a perspective on what my life was like.
And what was your life like?
It was like a bad novel.
A bad novel, okay. Which probably inspired you to actually write your book.
Right, I wrote a bad novel.
You wrote a bad novel, Mother Pucker. Okay, thanks for that. I guess I would be doing you a disservice if we didn't offer you the opportunity to play a few notes.
What would you like to hear?
Well, I'll leave that up to you.
Okay, let's see. Excuse me. I better.
Juan, did that sound good to you? Did it? Yeah, you're a little indecisive there, Juan. Okay, buddy, we really appreciate you. What you were going to say?
I don't dare.
You don't dare. Well, it's been a pleasure.
Cottonmouth.
Cottonmouth, okay. It's been a pleasure having you on the show this evening. We wish you all the success with your book, and let's hope those other two relatives buy a copy.
Yes, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Okay, thanks so much. That's it for this evening. Join us next week on All About Books for another great show.
Mes amis, you have been watching All About Books with Paul Kinkade. Buddy Cabernet's books can be found at the following locations: Walt Winey's Wine and Stuff, where Buddy is always on the shelf, and at Pete and Luigi's Richfield, where Buddy pumps gas and blows really big time. Or at Beach House Tacos and Wine, featuring a special Buddy reading, where he really toots his own horn.